Hello, welcome to a new podcast, our second rebrand. We started as a tale of two bridges, then it was never bridges again, and now we've burnt some bridges, and we're here. Chucktown Hoops podcast, Charleston Pride, let's go. We're with Patrick, the mainstay, my NBA brother in arms, and then we're with Jack, my real brother. How are y'all today?
Doing great, man. Excited to be back. Excited. It's been a good couple weeks with free agency and the draft going on. There's a lot of stuff to discuss. I'm so excited to dig into it.
Yeah.
As you can see, Jack has a Thawnees picture on, so he's a Bucks fan. He's not as excited as me and Patrick are.
It all sucks. Our best signing is Torian Prince.
All right. We saved you for last, okay? We're going in from left, right, bottom order, so just save your grievances. We're starting with my team, A, because I'm recording the podcast, and B, because I feel like we've had kind of the most promising offseason in a devoid landscape such as the Charlotte Hornets. So I guess it goes back to when we got new owners, because I've been saying it. If you ever listen to or want to go listen to me and Patrick's old podcast, I would always say with Jordan as the owner, there was no hope. We got new ownership in. They come in, they tell our former GM, Mitch Biden, that's what I call him, Mitch Biden. They told him to make some moves at the deadline. So we trade Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier, and PJ Washington for a plethora of draft capital and actual rotation players, which can't be underrated considering I thought we had like the most 20-point losses in NBA history. I looked it up. It was actually the Pistons last year. So that just shows there was a lot of bottom feeder teams last year. This offseason, draft to be determined. We drafted Tijan Salon. Jack, me and you's reaction when we watched the draft wasn't great at first, but I started selling myself on it because the more you look into him, he's a fierce competitor. The buzzword with him is high motor. That's all you ever hear, high motor, which is what we need. We needed competitive people. Everyone, when they leave us, say how botched our culture is. The last person you saw that with was Terry. When he went to the Heat, he was like, yeah, they're basically losers there, which is a fair thing to say considering the past however many years. So I like that they targeted a culture setter. We'll get into that. We've been taking on contracts for picks, which is something we never did before, which is what smart organizations do. So that's promising. Obviously, we used some of those picks to get Josh Green, who I think all three of us like a lot. I was super excited for that, especially for that price. And then most recently, we get Miles Bridges back, 3 years, $75 million. And even though he's a piece of crap, I mean, for $25 million for his production, his player type, that's a steal from a basketball standpoint. So that's kind of the lay of the land. Patrick, I'm going to leave it to you. Where do you want to go first with my team?
Well, I think the draft was the first thing that happened. And I think the initial thing from the first pick was, okay, I'm not sure how to feel about this guy. Just because you had some names that were available, more flashier names that people know a little bit better, like a Donovan Clingan, I guess a Zach Edey technically, or some guards like Rob Dillingham. But it's tough. It's tough to say because the thing with Salon is he really has an NBA-ready body from a sense. You know, a 6'9", 200-pound guy, 7'1" wingspan. That's a natural forward. That's what you want in today's NBA. The thing that's tricky is his shooting. I mean, he's just not a proven three-point shooter at all, which is against the flow of the modern NBA. And he's not really big enough to be a small ball five even. So
it's just to the shooting though. So I think his overall year was 32% from three, but apparently he closed out the year 36% from three. And overall, he had better shooting numbers than, say, Stephon Castle and a few other players in the lottery. His shot's a little weird, but I think it's workable. I just thought I should point that out. But I mean,
Yeah.
like you say, like he's not a perfect shooter by any means, but I think there's positive signs there. But go on.
Yeah, I mean that's perfectly fair too, because I think he had a lot of players in this draft that aren't really proven from 3-point land, especially on a consistent basis and stuff. So, and the same thing, he's 18 years old. That's it's one of those things. He's so young. Um, I mean, he's got so much potential to grow. For me, it's really going to be how involved can he get at the moment without his shot. I think his such sort of body type, he could definitely be kind of somebody who's sit in the dunker spot. Obviously, the roster construction is a little bit interesting though, with Nick Richards and Mark Williams still around. Those are two guys that their literal job is to occupy the dunker spot. So it's very much a long-term pick. It's a potential pick. You're drafting him for the potential of what he could be, which is somebody who will fit in seamlessly at the 4 next to Brandon Miller, next to Mark Williams, and then I mean he could be another lob threat for LaMelo Ball. So I like that pick compared to obviously I think the players in front like Stephon Castle may have been an option if he were to have fallen, but with him off the board, you were looking at potential or guys that weren't really positional needs. Like Klingon is, we had this debate before. Klingon is a very good player in my mind, but there's an argument to be had. You don't really need another center on the roster. So
they must feel confident about Mark Williams and his health because obviously he was out with a pretty bad back injury. So if they didn't take Klingon, they must feel pretty good about it, I would guess. So as to not intrude on his development.
Exactly. And that's the thing is if you had both of them, they're kind of redundant in a way. They're kind of similar players. So I understand wanting to get somebody has a more defined role on the team if everything works out. Quick mention of the second round guy, KJ Simpson. He's a guy, he had a great season for Colorado. Colorado won or played in the NCAA tournament this year. He was their leader. The thing with him is, to me, he's kind of a culture setter kind of guy. Yeah. Everything I've read about him seems like he's a very much a kind of pesky little guard. What he reminded me of was somebody like Jevon Carter on the Suns several years ago. We were very bad, and Jevon Carter came in, gave us hustle minutes, pressed, full court pressed, knockdown shooter. Plays the fundamentals really well. So no guarantee he's going to stick around on the roster long term, but for somebody when you're looking to build a culture on the team, he's definitely kind of one of those dogs you want to have in your locker room. Somebody who will come in off the bench and give you strong minutes. So I think that's the goal with him.
Did you see his interview? I wouldn't blame you if you didn't watch the second round at all. It was very... I don't even know the word to describe that production. It just felt fake. Like you can't even believe it was a professional sports league second round. But no, it was a really good emotional reaction. And like you said, basically emotional in the sense where it's like he's undersized, so everyone's always been counting him out. So he's just like everything it took to get here. I like what you said with that culture setting thing. That seems to be the player type we're going after, which, like I said, is exactly what we need. I can't believe I didn't mention him when I was going through the rundown, because I really like KJ Simpson, all around player. It's just if he were 5 inches taller, he would have gotten drafted way higher. I heard a lot of draft people say like they would watch Colorado and go like, well, he's the one that stands out, even though obviously the other two prospects have more potential, but it's like, but he's the guy doing everything.
Yeah, and the thing is too, last thing I'll say about it too is he's not completely, he's not like somebody you can't guard because he does have a 6'4" to 6'5" wingspan. So he's not a complete midget. I don't hate to say it, but he's not like somebody like Tyler Kolek, who was talked about a lot. Tyler Kolek is a natural 6 foot with a 6'1" wingspan. So Simpson having that 6'5"-ish wingspan makes it a lot more of a viable pesky kind of defender.
Yeah, like he's gonna get targeted, but he actually does have the tools to like do okay. And obviously the effort won't be a problem. Jack, what you probably digest more draft stuff than me and maybe Patrick. What were you might not know as much about Salon because he's international, but he did get a lot of talk of rising in the draft. And before you give your input, I should say, like, people were giving us crap for it, going like, well, that's a big swing. But all sources indicated and all the chatter indicated that the Spurs were taking him at 8 because he was Wembanyama's good friend. So the way the Hornets looked at it, like you said, Patrick, in a weaker draft, you want to take a swing on that type of player. So they were like, I mean, let's just take our guy. Let's not get cute with it. But yeah, Jack, so what did you see from Salon? What did you see from KJ Simpson this past year that you liked?
I mean, I have barely any knowledge of international players like Salon, so I had no idea who he was coming into the draft even. And with KJ, I've maybe watched one Colorado game. It might have been their tournament game, but I think I did notice because I knew his teammate Cody Williams. I knew how highly touted he was as a prospect going into his freshman year in Colorado. And I'm not really too familiar with his game, but I think, did Colorado have three draft picks?
Yeah.
Who was the third?
Tristan Da Silva.
Mm-hmm.
I think he went to the Magic, if I'm remembering correctly, but kind of power forward.
Yeah. I like you were saying about the big swing on Salon. As soon as you said that for like a international player taking that high, I mean, other than Wembanyama, like I was thinking immediately going to people like Giannis, like
that's what
spending a first round pick on this kid who, I mean, you have no idea what you're gonna get in 3 or 4 years time, and maybe not even the rookie year. Like Salon could, with that high motor, could really change up the team for the better.
Yeah, because like it is like scary like throwing around Giannis because it's Giannis, but
yeah,
it's not just the body type though. It is like, Giannis just plays balls to the walls. That's how Salon is. So like you said, like his rookie year, he can make just ferocious cuts to the basket, get fed alley-oops like Patrick said. So yeah, that could be interesting. It's interesting to see that when it's like this is a project player, but it's like, oh, he's scrapping it his first year. But yeah.
Yeah, I like the Salon pick for the Hornets just because that's like I want to research this guy. Like I want to see this guy play, and I want to know what he's all about, and like, is the potential there? There's just a lot more intrigue with that type of pick than someone like Klingon, probably, who everyone watched in the national tournament and throughout his career at UConn.
And Klingon, I mean, he had injury concerns too with his feet, I'm pretty sure. So it's not like he was a full bill of health. And then, like you said, wanting to see our new GM, or I don't think that's his official title, but he's, making the moves. He said, I think he went twice to go see Salon in France. So he was already infatuated with him earlier this year. So it wasn't like, out of the blue with the decision making there. And I guess it has been a while since we talked, Patrick, on the pod. I guess we should bring up that just with this team, it's so exciting as a fan that because I mentioned Mitch Biden. Like, it's like we finally have a youth movement. Jeff Peterson is super well spoken. It's a big relief to have that after Mitch like didn't know what he was talking about during the press conferences. We have a youth movement across the board through all of our staff. We didn't even have a modern analytics department until now. Coach Charles Lee, people love him. We saw that practice footage from the other day. It just seems like he's a good culture setter and who the guys will actually respond to, unlike Steve Clifford. Let's not go there, Patrick. We got Kemba as a coach. Yeah. That was super exciting. That's going to be great for culture as well. So all that's super exciting. I guess it just goes in with what I was talking about with just like getting assets for contracts. It's like we're finally doing stuff that makes sense. I'm super excited to see how it plays out. I guess one more thing we should talk about is the Bridges re-signing. Because like I said, it sucks to like root for someone that's done that. But you couldn't let the asset go for nothing. Because someone else would have taken him for cheap. And my thinking is, I wouldn't be surprised if we trade him at the deadline. Patrick, there was already talks that we would trade him to y'all, which I thought was kind of ridiculous that we would just take Nazir Little back. But I mean, $25 million a year, you know, teams get desperate when the playoffs are coming up. So I feel like that's a pretty good trade chip if things aren't really working in our favor. I just feel like this year is win-win because if we could be fully healthy, we definitely have like play-in, playoff potential. But if not, then we get another high lottery pick and a stacked draft class next year. So it's a lot of hope right now in Charlotte. The fans are starved for a good team. I've been there when we've had like moments of decent success. You could see it after the trade deadline when we actually started winning games. Like, people want to see a good team. I think this will be a fun team to watch. It has the potential to actually be a decent team. I'm super excited about the future for us too. A+ off season. It's brought tears to my eyes. The good tears though.
Yeah, I think really just in summary too, you know, even aside from the player acquisitions, I think the bigger acquisitions are, like you said, Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee. I mean, those are big major upgrades in, I think, everybody's opinion. From what the existing
James
infrastructure
Borrego
was.
And Steve Clifford and Mitch.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you look at it in the draft, like, regardless of if the pick's paying out or not, you see they're willing to do two different strategies. I mean, they went with a young project, and then they went with a high-floor college guy with a lot of experience and stuff. So yeah, it's cool to see that they're willing to, you know, try two different strategies, unlike, you know, other strategy of, I feel like Mitch was definitely more of a experienced college kind of draft. Obviously depends on who's available. Obviously Brandon Miller was I guess now looking at it, a no-brainer when we picked him. But, you know, it's nice to see that they can pivot and they're not just picking only project players or only college experienced guys and stuff.
Or only skinny players. Which, by the way, we cut McGowan's, we cut JT Thor, Book Knight's long gone. Obviously, they weren't NBA rotation players. I was kind of summarizing, but we didn't really talk about Josh Green, which I want to talk about a little bit. Man, that's such a good deal. I mean, two second rounders for him. He's got a great contract for the next 3 years. One thing I really like about Josh Green is that he's like a shooting guard, but a unique kind of shooting guard, you know, like very strong, runs hard. I mean, his three-pointer is up and down, but he was making big shots in the playoffs. That's a perfect fit with LaMelo and all of them, and actually gives us someone to play at the two guard besides perpetually injured Cody Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me he walks into that starting lineup. I like the fit. I mean, he's one of those guys. He's a good hustler on defense. And this year in the playoffs, I felt like he was a guy who got a lot of minutes off the bench for an NBA Finals team. So adding somebody like that to your rotation who's still young, relatively young, and still has room to grow, I like the fit next to LaMelo. He's definitely not a ball handler per se, but that's why you have LaMelo, you have Brandon Miller who makes strides there, you have Miles Bridges who's willing to put the ball on the floor too. So I think it's a good, solid fit, and I mean he's NBA size, prototypical wing guy. So never have too many of those on your roster.
Yeah, and I mentioned the skinny guy thing. It's just nice to have some beef on the roster. Him, and then everyone hates Grant Williams, including Thonny Jack Tecumpo down there. You didn't like him either. I might be the only human that does like Grant Williams, which is perfect that he ended up with us, man. He played great for us after the deadline. And he's one of those culture guys. Even though he's annoying, he hustles and will yell at people for not hustling. So super excited to watch us next year. Jack, you got any other thoughts on the Hornets?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Don't think so.
that's fine. Well, that means Patrick, we're up to your team next, the old Suns. So y'all went 49-33 last year. Pretty decent. There was some turmoil near the end of the year, rumors of, being unhappy with the coaching staff, which ended up being true. You were unhappy with the coaching staff in some ways. You get swept in round one to the Wolves when we both picked y'all against the Wolves because y'all dominated the Wolves all year. It was pretty stunning. But this offseason has looked good. You get Mike Budenholzer, good coach. But right before the playoffs, you re-sign Grayson Allen, do a good deal. You re-sign Royce O'Neal, do a good deal. You get Monty Morris. You get Bol back. Bol's back, baby. And you get Mason Plumlee, who actually, he kind of makes sense. I mean, for y'all, because Nurkic would, have some ball handling, passing responsibilities. So you bring in Plumlee, who I hate, but for a minimum, whatever. Before we go into, I want to bring up with y'all two specifically, like what draft capital you even have left, and it won't take me long. Patrick, y'all have a second round pick from Boston, protected 31-45. And then you got your own picks from 2031. That's it. So it's honestly, the fact that y'all have been so hamstrung and have the roster you have isn't bad. But what are you feeling for next year?
I think starting off with the big thing was the coaching change. It was one of those things. I do feel like Vogel was handicapped by the roster he was given. You saw his Lakers rosters or even his rosters back in the day with the Pacers and stuff. He wants defensive-minded guys, and to be honest, aside from guys like a Kogi and even maybe Keita Bates-Diop, when we had him for a little bit, everybody on that roster is more offensive-minded. So it was a tough situation, but I think for the roster we have, Budenholzer makes perfect sense. He had a year off, recharge and stuff. And the fact is whatever you can say about him in the playoffs and stuff, he wins in the regular season. Regularly had those Bucks teams at 50-win seasons, which we're going to need to compete in the West at a very stacked Western Conference. So based on the available people and the players we have in the win now mode, we could have taken a risk on a younger, unproven coach, but I think Budenholzer is the best proven coach in the market, offensive-minded guy who can also coach defense too. I mean, those Bucks teams were legit defensive teams. So excited with that. Grayson Allen happened during the end of last season. Again, a no-brainer. When you have a team like us who are above the second apron and cap space, you have to retain your guys, or else you're basically just you don't have the money to replace them. So Grayson Allen's contract I felt was pretty fair, and then seeing the guys who signed in free agency, I think it's a fair deal. Royce O'Neal, I think, was fair as well. The years are a little bit of a concern with being 4 years, but at the same time, 11 mil a year isn't bad for somebody who's definitely a rotation guy,
And
a
you liked
playoff
him a
team.
lot too, right?
Well, with that,
Royce O'Neal, I remember you being pretty dang fond of him since the deadline.
yeah, I mean, the thing is he's a guy who hustles on defense, gets rebounds, and he shoots the three ball really well. And the thing is, he's not a scared 3-point shooter. He's one of those guys, when he gets a shot, doesn't matter, if somebody's closing out on him or whatever, he's going to shoot the ball, which is something that I felt our team hesitated with a lot last year. A lot of people blamed it on coaching. Some people blamed it on players, but Chris O'Neal will shoot the ball, and I mean, he shoots at a very good percentage. Unfortunate, he's 6'5". That's really his downfall. If he was a 6'7", 6'8" guy, he would not be in our price range. I'll put it that way. But his physical limitations are there. But I mean, he's definitely a playoff kind of sort of guy. So, yeah. So the re-signings are important.
I did mention the draft picks.
Yeah. So the draft I felt was pretty strong. We went into it knowing that probably a wing or a center was what we're looking for. I mean, really, we need a wing, we need center, and we needed point guard. So could have gone a lot of different ways, but I really like that we traded down and acquired another pick. That's something we need to do. We need to have more young players. Last year, we drafted Tumani Kamara, who I was really excited about, and then we ended up trading him in the Ayton deal. We're a team that doesn't have much youth, so to have three guys that are going to be on rookie deals. So one of them is going to be on a two-way. Jalen Bridges, who we signed as undrafted free agent. So we have another Bridges on the team. And I do like him. 6'7" wing, shoots the three pretty well, at least in his last year at Baylor. So he could be a contributor. But Ryan Dunn was very exciting. The best defensive player in the draft, a lot of people think. Definitely the best wing defender in the class. Issue is he can't really do much on offense. There's potential there. He's a good cutter. He's not a bad passer, although he doesn't really utilize in that role at Virginia. But he's to me, he's an upgrade on somebody like Josh Okogie because he's a 6'7" guy, a lot more size, a 7'1" wingspan, so similar to like a Mikal Bridges in that sense. So my hope is maybe he can operate at more of like a dunker spot and like a Aaron Gordon kind of role from that sense. That would be, I think, an ideal scenario.
I feel like he's like, y'all were the perfect team to draft him in the late first because you list his measurements, his position. I heard like some people saying he was one of the better defensive prospects in the past few years. So not having much of an offensive game is fine. Like the fact that you were able to find such a specialist with y'all's roster, it's like you have shooting.
It's one of those things. Regular season, I think it'll be fine. It'll become playoff time where teams that you saw with Derek Jones Jr. teams are just going to leave him if he can't make the three. So
y'all have to do like Kevin Durant small ball lineups, right? But he's older, and I don't know if Budenholzer will do that.
Yeah, I mean, Dunn has the potential. He's a 6'7", 220 guy, so he could hold up at the five. It's not ideal. Obviously, it also depends on matchups. I mean, I think the East is a little bit more favorable for that. The West, you've got some pretty talented big men. You got some big teams, obviously, with like the Timberwolves are a large team. The Nuggets, it's tough to go small against the Nuggets, obviously. So it's debatable. Our second round pick gives us the option to play a little bit smaller. Oso Ighodaro, who was playing at Marquette this past year. Not really a shooter, but he's definitely a high IQ sort of passer. Think of him as similar to Nurkic, just without being 7'2" and 300 pounds. He's a shorter guy, but he's a smart person in the short pick and roll. Pretty mobile on defense, defends well on the perimeter. So minutes this year, we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see, but I think he's quality depth at least. Gives you a different option, probably kind of the Thaddeus Young style of replacement. Thad didn't really get many minutes for us last year, but I think that's kind of going to be Oso's role as a different option at center. So overall draft was pretty pleased with that.
I'm curious with Budenholzer, since he liked to do drop so much in Milwaukee. you can't do that as much if you have Nurkic and Plumlee. So I wonder how he's gonna shuffle his schemes. Jack, did you like how he's all shaved now? He doesn't look like a wildebeest anymore. Budenholzer?
He lost all his aura.
You think so?
He's not. Well, it's because he's not in Wisconsin anymore. He can't blend into the environment.
Yeah, see,
as
because
well.
I thought when you said he lost his aura, you were gonna say he lost weight because there was no Culver's to go to anymore, or
Yeah.
constant beer. Jack, what are you seeing from the Suns that you're liking for next year?
I have a lot of thoughts on the Suns. Since 2021, basically.
Okay.
I
Oh yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, I pay attention to them. I don't even though that final series was won by the Bucks, I still hold like a friendly hatred for the Suns,
Hear that,
just a little
Patrick?
bit.
Friendly hatred.
Not like it's not really justified because we won, but still, I don't want them to be successful. But but the earliest I can remember was the Kevin Durant trade buzz at around that time when he was rumored to go to the Suns, and because I think the general consensus was that Michael Bridges had to go in that trade, and I thought the Suns can't. There's no way they can adequately compete without Michael Bridges. He was just too much of a glue.
Michael Bridges?
Huh?
Who's Michael Bridges?
Michael Bridges?
You mean Mikhail?
Mikhail? Whatever.
It's fine. Go on. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, but when they did that, I was kind of, the scene in Spider-Man 3 when the guy's praying for Peter Parker to die in the church? Yeah. That was kind of like me, but with the Suns, because I just, I just didn't care for them all too much. I
So
didn't
you
want
were
them.
hoping Michael Bridges would be in the trade, basically.
I think, well, no, I think I knew he would be in the trade, but I knew that would have bad effects for the Suns, and it's just whatever for the Nets because they're a terrible franchise, anyways. So, but it all stems because I had a friend who was a huge Suns fan, and he
Me
couldn't
too.
shut up about he this one, not Patrick. He couldn't. This other guy couldn't shut up about the KD trade and how they were gonna win it all. So that's where the hatred really kind of started to set in.
Okay, you're a real feed off of if your friends talk about a certain team a lot, you're like, all right, screw you.
Well, I mean, if they're not humble about it.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah. And then the last two seasons have been, or the last season and a half have been, you can call them seasons for the Suns. Just when they, I remember the off season. I guess it was last off season when they went and got like Bol and I think Yuta Watanabe.
Yeah.
And I was seeing so much buzz about it, so much like, wow, the Suns are really a super team right now.
All that super team talk was so stupid, dude. It's like it's Bradley Beal. Come on.
I didn't even get to the Bradley Beal trade. That's like the nail in the coffin because this dude hasn't been the same player in years and also has a terrible, horrible contract that you're putting on. And like Okay, I'm a huge Devin Booker fan. I think he's a really good player. I think his best level of play that I've ever seen was the 2021 playoffs when they went to the finals, because he was just a bucket, really.
Either that or
And
when they played the Nuggets. He was
yeah,
going crazy then.
yeah. But I was just thinking that, like, I feel bad for him because they brought in KD and now it's, some people might say it's KD's team. It's not Booker's team anymore, when I think it's always been Booker's team. Like, and they're not making the right moves right now, or they've made the wrong moves, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. I like you were saying, I like the Royce O'Neal signing. I think he's great. I think he reminds me of a player like Bruce Brown or something, like he could do for what he could do for the Suns, what Bruce Brown did for the Nuggets. And yeah. And the Budenholzer signing was just, like, really funny to me.
Why?
Because I mean, he gets fired. He gets fired from his job in Milwaukee, and in my opinion, I don't think he deserved to be fired. I think it was just a unfortunate, like, course of events that led to their disappointing postseason, that led to him getting fired. And it almost looks like, to me, just funny revenge to go to the Suns and try to lead that team.
So do you think he's gonna improve them a decent amount?
I think he brings quite a bit. I mean,
Play random. Play random.
Hey guys, shoot the ball. Go run. Get running. No, that's people joke about that, but I think he's a lot better behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure.
Than actually being on camera when people see him being a coach.
All right, well, as a Suns hater, so how do you think they'll do next year? Or do you think they have any chance at contention, or do you think they're dead in the water?
I think this is their last year to be in contention. I think really just you have to win now, or else I don't see the year after this one either Beal or KD or even Booker or anyone just still being around on that team, since success is such a big factor on whether some people stay. KD.
Yeah. Patrick, what do you think? How are you feeling about your title chances this year?
I mean, I think the roster construction is a lot different than last year. I feel like last year we went with a lot of guys hoping for ideal outcomes, hoping that Keita Bates-Diop would be a 40% three-point shooter, hoping that Yuta would be a 48% three-point shooter, or whatever crazy statistics he had with the Nets when KD was around. I felt like this year in free agency we've gone for a lot of guys who are proven. We know what their strengths are, we know what their weaknesses are, but they're guys who are high floor guys. Starting with Plumlee, last year we had the worst backup center in the history of basketball on our roster, and Drew Eubanks. So Plumlee all he needs to do is come in and rebound and box out, and that will be an upgrade. But I think Plumlee has something left in the tank. My biggest concerns there are I feel like we got kind of lucky last year that Nurkic stayed healthy the whole year. So it's going to be tricky if he gets hurt like he has in the past, and then you got to rely on Plumlee. So I'd like to see us sign another big man. It's just kind of a tough market right now. But somebody like Paul Reed is still available. It wouldn't be a bad signing for us. But all we have to offer is the veterans minimum. I mean, that's the important thing to look at our offseason through a lens specifically because we can only offer a vet minimum to players. So with that being said, I think we have made some good signings. To me, Monte Morris is our best signing. This is a guy that for years on the Nuggets was one of the best, if not the best, backup point guards in the league. Crazy statistic about him was about his turnover ratio. I don't remember the exact stat, but basically his turnover ratio is something like 5.07 to 1, which is one of the highest in NBA history. So he's basically a dude who doesn't turn the ball over at all, which if you watch the Suns last year, that's what a lot of the media was talking about. And it's a fair criticism. They turned the ball over a lot. So having a natural point guard on the roster would help. I think he's still going to come off the bench. I think a lot of people are saying Beal needs to come off the bench. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic for a $50 million player. And the thing with Beal is criticism is warranted for certain things, but he's a guy who does try really hard. And at the same time, he closed out last year pretty strongly. The playoffs weren't his best showing necessarily, but he closed out the year strongly. And I think going into this year, it's going to be a system where Beal is going to be the main point guard and Booker is going to go more off ball, which is, in my opinion, where he's best. I think that's what you got to do is you got to utilize Booker's strengths and KD's strengths and then build the team around that. I felt like last year it was kind of trying to put Booker kind of a square peg in a round hole. Booker can play point guard in a pinch. I think he's still good at it, but he is the best shooting guard in the NBA when he's utilized off ball. And I felt like we kind of got away from that last year. So I like that. I like that.
Even KD felt like he was underutilized. Like I remember me and you would go like, "Why is he just standing in the corner?" There's Kevin, but I mean, part of that could be because of how much he had to do on defense, and he's getting older.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he was our best defensive player last year, and he still is a great defensive player. But I think that's the hope with signing a Ryan Dunn kind of player is he can take the toughest defensive matchup, and that way KD doesn't have to. KD wants to do it, I know, but he needs to, listen to the coaching staff and let somebody else take that workload. I think it helped having Royce O'Neal around because he's the type of guy who he can't. I mean, again, he's size limited. He's not going to be guarding Giannis or any of the other taller players or more physical players in the league, but he can take those wing matchups. Your Paul
Him and
Georges.
Grayson Allen seem to really like play above their size this past year. Like they really took on the assignment on defense.
Yeah.
And
me,
Bradley
looking at
Beal, like you said too.
Yeah, to me, looking at our team, we kind of went with the 3-guard system with Grayson Allen at 3 this year. With Eric Gordon gone, I'd like to see Grayson Allen move into that 6-man role and kind of replace that production there, which I think he would be good at. I'd really like to probably see Royce O'Neal start and then kind of go from there. I think Dunn would be the best starter just in terms of getting KD back to the 3, which to me is what I prefer. But we'll have to see. I really like Bol being back. I thought he showed a lot of flashes second half of last year, and to be honest, I think he was underutilized. He's a guy with size and length, so to me, it's like it's what we're lacking, and he offers you solid production at the offensive end. The defense is a work in progress, but I saw flashes last year that I didn't see in Orlando or at his previous stops and stuff. So still got room for some more acquisitions. Again, it's going to be vet minimum deals, so I'm hoping for another big and then maybe another wing. A Jay Crowder reunion has been talked about, which would be kind of funny, but we certainly could do worse. Another wing who can shoot the 3 ball and play physical defense. You can never have too many of those guys on a roster. So Okogie's still out there. There's been talks about re-signing him. Okogie's one of those guys. He hustles. He plays defense. So he's not somebody who I don't mind having him around, but I'd like to see if we can get an offensive upgrade there. So overall, I think we're in a good spot to make the playoffs. And avoid the play-in just based off of what we've done this offseason. And Budenholzer's, has a track record he produces in the regular season. It's just a matter of how this team's going to gel around the playoffs, which what we said last year. Things were to go wrong, I think at the deadline, anything's on the table. I still maintain I don't think Booker's going to ask out, at least not at this point of his career. But I think if we're struggling, we're in the play-in or worse around the deadline, I could see a KD trade. I genuinely could if it's like that at the deadline. So, but we're going to hope it's not going to be that way. We're going to hope the Suns will be a top 4 seed and all will be well a couple months into the year.
I guess to summarize with them or with y'all, I should say, is it like with everything we've talked about with the acquisitions with Bud, is that how you kind of like you're going to have deficiencies, particularly with size and like you said, like a bigger West? You look at the T-Wolves. I mean, the Thunder are a bit undersized, but they they have more depth. Like to get swept and then I think even you called the team soft at some point. A lot of locker room stuff. Do you just think now that everyone's like in their role, new coach to start the year, you're not relying solely on like random minimum guys like Jack said? Do you think that's how you get over the hump? Just like starting the year with plus continuity is underrated in the NBA. Y'all only had 1 year with this team, so. Yeah, basically, my question is all those factors that kind of gives you confidence that y'all might be able to make a run, or do you just think that the size talent deficiency will be too much in the playoffs?
I think it's one of those things where hindsight's 2020, but I do believe this year's roster is more well put together than last year's roster. It still is, though. I mean, there's definitely, I don't even want to say a size deficiency because, I mean, you look at the Thunder, for example, but at the same time, you look at the Mavericks. I mean, we're theoretically a larger team than the Mavericks. I mean, KD, PJ Washington at the 4, they played, you could say, 3-guard lineups of sorts. Obviously, Luka's a big guard, almost a forward in a sense. So, to me, it's one of those things. If you can play the 5-out spacing that the Mavericks, played this year to a point, and then have somebody like Lively or Gafford at the 5 who can take on some of those tougher matchups with your Goberts or your, I guess theoretically, your Wembayamas or your Jokic's. You can still, there's a way to win playing small ball. It's a little bit scary because, I mean, Budenholzer had none of these problems in Milwaukee. I mean, he had 3 very capable big men available pretty much at all times. So it'll be different, but he's a smart offensive coach. In Atlanta, he played 5-out basketball with Al Horford at the 5. So I'm comfortable, and it's one of those things. We have to be a top 5 offense to have a chance and to have a winning season. Vogel wasn't able to produce that. I have a lot more faith in Budenholzer producing that. And Budenholzer has track record of having solid defensive teams. So I think last year we were trying to make ourselves a defensive. We were trying to focus so much on the defense that our offense sucked. I think we're doing better this year. Lean into our offense and figure out the defense. And it could go horribly wrong. I mean, it's very possible it does. But let's lean into our strengths instead of trying to lean into our weaknesses and make them a lot better, which I still think we're doing. Like I said, Ryan Dunn is a pick that makes a lot of sense. And then, we'll have to wait and see if we add any more defensive-minded guys in free agency.
All right, well, let's move on to the moment Jack's been waiting for. Honestly, similar situations. You got the Budenholzer, Grayson Allen. See, I think I mispronounced that name, Jack. It's Budenholzer. I think it is Buden, yeah. But y'all had the same record last year, 49-33. Doc Rivers comes in mid-season. I did this with the Suns. I want to do this with y'all because it's a big reason why y'all haven't been able to improve. Y'all's only picks are in 2031. you have no other picks. At least according to this website I was looking at. Maybe it's wrong, but still, that's pretty crazy. I mean, DeLon Ray, Taurean Prince honestly aren't too bad of signings. That's better than Patrick Beverley and Jay Crowder. I mean, you still have Giannis. Dame had kind of an off year. He's getting older. Doc Rivers, I don't know if y'all saw Doc Rivers said on the Bill Simmons podcast that Dame didn't work out at all last offseason because apparently since he knew he was getting traded, he didn't want to get hurt. But I'm like, damn, you couldn't even do cardio day or something? What? And then obviously he was having problems just living in Milwaukee. I remember seeing quotes like, bro, I just go home and just like watch TV. I don't do nothing here. And then he had the divorce and whatever else. I mentioned the continuity, have another year under the belt of this core. But man, the East got stronger. Y'all's team got a year older. Giannis, I'm not worried about with that, but everyone else. Then it's Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham as the lead coaches, who the Lakers fans couldn't wait to get rid of Darvin Ham. So, Jack, how you feeling about the Bucks? Let it out.
I can't help but not be hopeful because,
It's you're a fan.
You can't just be like, oh, we're going 40 and 42 this year. We're not even doing anything. Even if it were the realistic outcome. But the Darvin Ham mid-season signing, at first I thought I didn't think of it entirely negative because I, for the most part, trusted our front office with any and all moves because I thought before the season, I thought the Dame trade was bare minimum a good trade for the Bucks, just for what they needed to make it further.
That now? How do you feel about that now?
I feel just okay because I don't think that if the Bucks had kept Drew, that the outcome of this season would have been any different. Okay. Because what Drew brings, Dame lacks, and what Dame brings, Drew lacks. So it's just like evening out pretty much. It's not even really a improvement from one or the other. But it was kind of a blunder because they just ended up going and letting the Celtics snag Drew. So pretty much the Bucks' number one enemy in the East.
Drew looks good in green, man.
Yeah. But I thought the Darvin Ham signing at first was okay, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, why would you do this? You already have a rookie first year head coach after firing your coach of 5 years, and you're gonna go fire the rookie head coach and bring in, I don't care if it's Darvin Ham, if he's been in the league.
Oh, Doc Rivers,
coaching.
You mean?
I mean, Doc Rivers, yeah. I don't care if he's been coaching for 20 years. That still just messes up everything pretty much with the whole team. To have 3 separate head coaches in the span of 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't expect post All-Star game for the Bucks to get like majorly better. Their defense got better. That was what was a big concern. Their defense went from bottom 10 to just kind of a little middle of the road. And it was just tough to watch some of the games because there was no game plan whatsoever. There was no like bet plays or anything. I don't know how much of that was just Dame kind of being a little ball hog sometimes, but everyone post Dame trade was like, wow, the Dame Giannis pick and roll is just gonna be unstoppable. Who's stopping this? I maybe saw like 3 Dame and Giannis pick and rolls through the whole season.
They gotta fix that, man.
There's just such a plain and simple answer, but they just like can't seem to figure it out. And another issue is, like you said, the age going up. Like Brook Lopez, this year he's just not the same. This was his first year. I think I've seen like actual significant decline. Like usually, at least offensively, in the past, you could almost always kick it out to him, and he'd splash it in, Splash Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, he wasn't a reliable shooter anymore, and he's so slow. And even if his height and his defensive just awareness, if you can't move, if you can't like keep up with these young guys, you're not doing anything at all. And that's kind of what happened. He's just way too slow for this type of modern NBA, I guess.
Yeah.
Where most, if not all of these new drafted centers, new taller forwards that would be posting up against him and testing their luck against him, they could all blow past him. They could run past him, and he couldn't do anything. So I think the trade rumors with him right now need to actually happen, because the rumors with San Antonio for Keldon Johnson for Brook, I do like that idea.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up when we were talking about them is I agree with you on all of that. Is it like that ridiculous to just play Giannis at the 5? I always thought as he got older that was like would just be his natural position.
I mean he probably should, because I think if they do that Keldon Johnson trade, that's what will end up happening.
What do you think about that, Patrick?
I mean, I think, again, his role is really thriving in the dunker spot. So he's basically been playing like a 5 on offense for years now.
Yeah.
It just depends on who you're, going to surround him with. I mean, I think him and Bobby Portis, when they play together, are interchangeable. It's just when Brook plays, he's a natural 5, kind of defensively specifically. But I mean, the plus minus ratings, I remember, I think that was during the finals run a couple of years ago. The plus minus ratings with Giannis at the 5 were very successful, because it can just be a 5-out offense. And it gives you the versatility to play more wing defenders against teams in the East that are a little bit smaller, that may, like if you come up against the Knicks, for example, you have to kind of play Giannis on one of their wings, because the Knicks are a team that are going to play one big specifically, and Brook Lopez is going to have to guard that, whether it be Julius Randle or Mitchell Robinson or whatever. And then you have Giannis having to run around and keep up with OG or Mikhail on the perimeter, and it can be taxing, so there's definitely options there. I think at this point he can handle the workload of the 5, and then you just have somebody off the bench to be physical if you come up against your Embiids or your Jokic's.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Keldon Johnson, Jack, so what you give up that 2031 pick, Brook Lopez and Pat Connaughton? Is that the move?
I'm not really sure, because I don't know what the Spurs value Brook Lopez as, if they still think that they can get that type of defensive output and maybe like 3-point shooting from him that's been in the past, it might not require that pick to be thrown in, because maybe if in my head I thought it would be Brooke, Andre Jackson, and maybe Pat Connaughton.
How mad were you that Doc stopped playing Andre Jackson?
Oh, I mean, every single time Andre Jackson was on the court, he was just flying and grabbing rebounds. When, like, I have like PTSD from the Bucks not being able to get rebounds correctly and not being able to defensively or offensively rebound. And he's just a young guy with a high motor. And like you were saying with Salon, like people with a high motor are valued. And just it kind of sucks because he reminds me of Pat Connaughton, past Pat Connaughton, being able to go and grab rebounds. Yeah. So I think if any trade were to happen, if it's a Brook trade, if it's a Chris trade, which is possible because in an interview, Doc Rivers said that he wanted to do a shakeup of everyone but the core, and that he considers the core to be to be Dame and Giannis, and basically everyone else is up for grabs, pretty much, which I'm not sure how to feel about that, because when Chris is healthy, he can be really, really good. But when he's injured, I feel like that just messes up the whole team, because he really hasn't been healthy in over a year.
It almost feels like the Klay Thompson thing a bit. Like, he didn't have as devastating injuries as Klay did, but it's like he just kept getting hurt the past few years in his early 30s, and that just kind of accelerates the decline of a player, which is disappointing because, I mean, he's Chucktown's own Chris Middleton, so soon we're just going to have Aaron Nesmith left to watch. But I don't know, Patrick, do you, because Jack was talking about how he was praying in a church for y'all to die. Did you feel any of that with the Bucks at all? Are you enjoying the downfall? What's your gauge at?
No, I have no hate for the Bucks because they built their roster naturally. They didn't. It wasn't like a situation where it's like, oh, the big, which I know the Suns are doing it now or whatever, but I like to think we build our roster a little bit more naturally than like the Nets back in the day or the Heatles or whatever. Obviously, there was a bit of that during the finals run. I thought the foul calls were pretty BS throughout that series, but the Bucks were a better team.
They were.
It's one of those things I bitch about the refs in pretty much any game. So
you're like Luka at the TV.
Honestly, that's the thing is the next year in the whole Maverick series was completely worse. So I respect the Bucks. I have no issues with them. I like Giannis. I've always liked Dame. And then I like Chris Middleton. I like all their players. I have no issues with any of their players. So for me, the Prince signing was really nice. I think that's the type of player they need, more of those type of players. I think Malik Beasley was obviously good as a 3-point shooter, but you need somebody who can take on some defensive matchups. Jay Crowder was fine, but he's not really a defensive stopper anymore. He's more of a jack of all trades sort of guy. So Prince is somebody who can give you good minutes, probably should start, but got to continue to build with guys like that. But a quiet offseason for them, honestly. I did like DeLon Wright. I've always been a kind of a DeLon Wright guy. I think he can give you good quality minutes. To me, it's basically he's going to take Pat Bev's minutes, and he's better than Pat Bev at this point in their career. What's that?
That psycho Pat Bet, all that stuff was so crazy in the playoffs, man. Like,
Yeah,
if you're
I mean,
not
he
subscribed
brings.
to my podcast, get out.
It's one of those things where I get he can build kind of a culture and stuff. I mean, defensive, dirty culture and stuff like that. But at this point in a career, there ain't going to be that. You're not going to have Giannis playing like Ant was, 2 years ago in the play-in and stuff. Giannis and Dame are veterans. This is too veteran of a team. I think he can do that sort of mentality with a young team like the Timberwolves were a couple years ago, but he's not gonna have Chris Middleton and Giannis playing four-court defense. It's just not gonna happen. So DeLon Wright is gonna go in there, do a job, keep his, not do stupid shit. And so for a veteran's minimum, I would have liked him on the Suns. So I think it's a good signing. Just need to sign some more wings, definitely.
You mentioned Malik Beasley. Like, I don't even think they could have re-signed him. I know he didn't get much money. I don't even think the Bucks could have given him that much, but I know he couldn't get many stops. But Jack, how do you feel about that? Because I kind of like Beasley.
That's interesting because Malik Beasley is such a 50-50 player.
Like, one night he's awesome, one night you hate him.
It's not even on a nightly basis. It's like on a weekly basis. It's like he can have 4 straight games where he misses all of his threes, which he's there for.
Yeah.
And it sucks because if he was consistent like that, they would have a better chance in a lot of games. But when he's good, he's good. When he's bad, he's horrible. So
basically unplayable, yeah.
Yeah. And like a lot of times I would have rather seen Pat Connaughton playing at the 2 or 3 or anywhere, because even Pat Connaughton was a more reliable shooter, even if he was mainly in the corner. But I don't mind seeing him go.
Okay.
Like I think Taurean Prince, like Patrick said, I think that's an upgrade.
I know he didn't look great last year, and you just got Taurean Prince, and Patrick was saying there might be a Suns reunion, but wouldn't it still kind of make sense if you could get Crowder back on the minimum? Because I know he's like declined, but it's like Patrick said, you need more wings. You gotta get what you can get. Like, I feel like they should be trying to do that. Or did you just think he was toast by the end?
Honestly, he was kind of toast.
Okay.
I didn't see the type of 3-and-D type of play that I would have wanted for giving up 5 second rounders for him.
Yeah. God damn. Forgot about that.
Yeah. So like I wish we got Suns Jay Crowder. Like, that would have been awesome. That would have been huge because I remember that finals series, he hit some nasty threes and through that whole playoff run.
I love both y'all's teams that year, man. Y'all were both so fun to watch.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind to see him go, because I think there's younger and probably maybe better options available.
Okay. Well, I guess for them, maybe same thing with the Suns. Like, is there any hope to win the title? I don't know. I mean, you have Giannis. You have Giannis. But...
yeah. I think no matter what, if you have Giannis on your team, you're at least gonna make the playoffs.
Well, yeah.
I feel like.
See, you mentioned 40 and 42. I think y'all will be fine the regular season.
Oh,
you
yeah.
could easily get 50 plus wins.
Yeah.
I'm not worried
regular
about that.
season should be fine. Postseason, like, it was honestly the worst of luck for the Bucks to have to play the Pacers in the first round.
Yeah.
Probably the best team against the Bucks this past season, because the Bucks had no answer for that young of a team with like just shooting and just everything basically. The Pacers outmatched. Yeah. All of it. And I mean, the playoff injuries, every team gets playoff injuries. I think any Nets fan will discredit the Bucks championship because Kyrie got hurt and then Harden got hurt in that Bucks Nets series. But it's just every year the Bucks have someone injured.
And like y'all still held up pretty decent, getting 2 games in with everyone hurt. Dame time was kind of happening for a second there in the playoffs, and I remember Chris had that big like send to OT shot. So health is going to be way bigger for y'all than most other people.
I was really like, speaking of game time, like that first regular season game between the Bucks and the Sixers, where he like just went off and had such a good like final fourth quarter performance. I was so hype for the season. And I realized that the Bucks, they had the potential to be just that clutch team that can come back from down something or even hold leads. Like that's probably the biggest thing that I was happy with this past season. The Bucks were able to keep the leads that they had without having to fight for the leads to stay, pretty much. And Dame was really clutch. Like I can recall at least 10 games where he just went off in the last 5 minutes to either at least bring the game close or win the game for them. So I don't think I'd discount the Bucks from championship contention just because I wouldn't want that, but it will depend on health and system and any other offseason moves that they make. Like Taurean Prince, I could easily see him coming off the bench or starting, either one. But it will all depend.
I think it'll depend not just health for y'all, but health for, like, if you face Boston, you might need one of them to get hurt, even if you're healthy.
Unless the Celtics hatred is just so strong. Just even the word makes me mad.
Yeah, well,
but
in history it's Celtic. It's not Celtic, but anyway.
Yeah, whatever. Team that drafted James Bouknight. I don't want to hear it.
Whoa, what was that all about? I was just saying, the Celtic people was pronounced Celtic. What the hell? Anyway, Patrick. Wait, you're going still? Go
ahead. Anything else? Oh, our rookies. The guy from Australia who averaged 3 points per game, AJ.
Oh my god! Yeah, we didn't mention your draft much. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because what's there to mention? Like
3 points a game?
3 points per game. Honestly, he's 19. He's young. And I think if the Bucks, whatever they see in him, I hope is true. But, with all those other guys, I think those late first rounders, there's at least one good talent back there.
Ryan Dunn?
And maybe. But
that would have been a good fit.
I don't know. The Bucks could have drafted this guy in the second round. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They could have, but they took him with the 23rd pick when there was probably a good like 6 or 7 other guys that I would have preferred on the team. Like, I really wish the Bucks were able to get De'Ron Holmes, because like going on about Brooke, just having a young center, young big man would have been really nice.
Well, now you got 2 projects for the title run.
Right. Right. And then the other guy, Tyler Smith from the overtime elite league, which I don't think I entirely trust them yet.
Well, Alex Sarr was second team overtime elite. You don't trust that?
Oh, the Thompson twins are from there,
good.
right?
They're good, yeah. They're from there.
I don't know. Second round pick. Big guy. I hope that they can have an impact on the team in some way. It doesn't even have to be on the court. As long as they're like helping. I think that's probably it from me.
All right, well, we'll end on Patrick. What do you think their chances are for a title this year?
I mean, to me, it's all about health, like we talked about. If you can get to the playoffs and have Giannis, who still is arguably the best player in the world, he's definitely top 3, and you have Dame and Chris Middleton, who are 2 historically great playoff basketball players. If you can get to the playoffs with those 3 healthy, you have a chance. Obviously, the surrounding pieces are still important too, but those 3 guys can win games on their own. It's tough, though. It's tough against the Celtics, but I think Giannis would give the Celtics some unique challenges. I know they played in the past or whatever, but Giannis is a tough matchup for somebody like Al Horford at this point in his career. And with Porzingis, his health always kind of up in the air. If Porzingis isn't around, it could be a dangerous series for the Celtics. And same with the Knicks. I think the Bucks actually match up decently well with the Knicks in terms of size-wise. I think that would give the Knicks trouble. But it's definitely one of those things similar to the Suns. The team's not getting any younger, so kind of need to go on a run this year. I think it's possible, but I mean, I've always been pretty consistent. I don't think Doc Rivers is a good coach at this point. I do think he once was. I just would like to put that out there. I do think he once was a good coach, but he's not a good coach anymore, in my opinion. So it's tough for me to see them winning a championship with him at the helm, but things are possible. Like I said, when you have great star talent and good playoff performers, things are possible. So,
yeah. So, well, I mean, like I was saying, y'all are both in a pretty similar position. Not much left in the tank. Got great players, older, but still, you have a chance, and that's what we do it for, to try and get a ring. This team right here is getting one in a few years. Just wait. Brandon Miller, Finals MVP. Yes, we drafted James Bouknight, but he's gone now. We exercised him. All right, well, it was fun, fellas. We're back with the podcast, and next time, Jack will have a webcam, and we'll be talking about some other teams that we were interested in from their free agency and draft, and we'll have plenty to talk about in the lead up to the season. It'll be here before you know it. So, Patrick, Jack, do y'all want to say anything else before we close up here?
good on my end. Good to be back.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Peace.